Have you ever wondered why some people get richer during recessions while others lose everything? Why do market crashes make certain investors wealthy while wiping out everyone else? Here's what nobody talks about. The rich aren't just getting lucky when things go wrong. They're deliberately profiting from the mistakes other people make. Here at Simple Money, we've spent years watching how wealth actually moves, and I've discovered something uncomfortable. While most people are taught to avoid mistakes, the wealthy are taught to capitalize on them. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how this works. And more importantly, how understanding this can change everything about your financial future. Here's what's really happening in our economy right now. Every single day, millions of people make predictable financial mistakes. They panic sell when markets drop. They overpay for cars they can't afford. They take on debt at the worst possible times. And here's the thing. These aren't random errors. They're patterns. And wealthy people? They've learned to recognize these patterns. They wait for them. They position themselves to benefit from them. It's like knowing exactly when and where lightning will strike. While everyone else runs for cover, they're standing there with a lightning rod attached to a generator. Think about the last financial crisis. Remember 2008? While millions of families lost their homes, a small group of investors made billions. Not by creating value, not by inventing anything, simply by being on the right side of other people's mistakes. They bought houses for pennies on the dollar. They purchased stocks at historic lows. They lent money at high interest rates to desperate people. Now here's what makes this so frustrating. Most people think this is about being smarter or having insider information. It's not. It's about understanding human psychology. It's about knowing that when people are scared, they make irrational decisions. And those decisions transfer wealth. From the panicked to the prepared, from the emotional to the strategic. The first way rich people profit from mistakes is what I call the panic premium. This is probably the most powerful wealth transfer mechanism in existence, and it happens like clockwork. Here's how it works. When something scary happens in the economy, most people panic. They sell their investments, they hoard cash, they make fear-based decisions. And wealthy people? They do the exact opposite. They buy what everyone else is selling, at massive discounts. Let me give you a specific example. March 2020, the pandemic hits. The stock market crashes 30% in 3 weeks. Millions of regular people panic and sell their investments. They're thinking, this could go to zero. I need to protect what I have left. Meanwhile, wealthy investors are thinking, everything just went on sale. Time to buy. Fast forward 2 years. The market fully recovered and hit new highs. The people who sold in panic locked in their losses. They turned temporary drops into permanent damage. The wealthy people who bought during the panic? They made hundreds of thousands. Some made millions. Same event, completely different outcomes. But here's what makes this pattern so reliable. It's not really about the market. It's about human nature. Our brains are wired for survival. When we sense danger, we want to escape. We want to run. This kept our ancestors alive when they encountered lions. But in modern finance, this instinct destroys wealth. Think about it this way. Imagine you're at an auction. Everyone around you is terrified and leaving. The auctioneer is practically giving things away because nobody's bidding. Would you run away with everyone else? Or would you recognize the opportunity? The wealthy have trained themselves to see panic as a shopping opportunity, not a reason to join the crowd. The second way they profit is through the desperation loan. This one is particularly cruel because it traps people in cycles they can't escape. Here's the pattern. Someone hits a financial emergency. Car breaks down, medical bill arrives, unexpected expense appears. They don't have savings, they can't get a traditional loan, so they turn to high-interest options. Payday loans, title loans, credit cards with 25% interest rates. And who provides these loans? Wealthy people and the companies they own. They've positioned themselves to be the solution when people are desperate. And desperate people don't negotiate. They don't shop around. They just need money now, so they accept terrible terms. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah's car broke down. She needed $800 for repairs. She couldn't get to work without her car, couldn't earn money without getting to work. She took a payday loan at 400% annual interest. 400%. She planned to pay it back in 2 weeks. But life happened. Another expense came up. She couldn't pay it back. The interest compounded. That $800 loan turned into $1,200. Then $1,500. She was trapped, working just to pay interest on money she borrowed months ago. Now multiply Sarah by millions. That's not an exaggeration. Millions of people in this exact situation. And every dollar they pay in interest, it flows upward. To the investors who own these lending companies. To the wealthy people who fund these operations. Sarah's mistake wasn't just taking the loan. It was not having an emergency fund in the first place. But her mistake became someone else's profit center. Here's what makes this so insidious. The wealthy aren't lending their own money anymore. They're using other people's money. They pool investments. They create funds. They spread the risk. If some people default, it doesn't matter. The interest rates are so high that profits from successful loans cover the losses. It's a system designed to extract wealth from people who can least afford it. The third way is what I call the expensive convenience. This is subtler, but it adds up to massive wealth transfer over time. Rich people understand something most people miss. Every convenience has a hidden cost, and poor people pay more for convenience than wealthy people ever do. Let me show you what I mean. Wealthy people buy in bulk. They purchase a year's worth of toilet paper at Costco. They save 30% compared to buying it week by week at the corner store. Poor people can't do this. They don't have the upfront cash. They don't have storage space. They don't have a car to transport bulk purchases, so they buy small quantities at premium prices. Wealthy people own their cars outright, or they lease strategically for tax purposes. Poor people finance cars at high interest rates. They're paying $15,000 for a car worth $10,000 over 7 years, with 8% interest. That's pure profit for the lenders. Wealthy people use banks with no fees. They maintain minimum balances. They avoid overdrafts. Poor people use banks that charge monthly fees, overdraft fees, ATM fees, check cashing fees. They're paying hundreds of dollars a year just to access their own money. See the pattern? Being poor is expensive. Every financial mistake, every lack of access, every desperate decision costs money. And that money goes somewhere. It flows to the people who own the banks, the lending companies, the convenience stores, the check cashing places. It's like a reverse tax. Instead of wealthy people paying more, poor people pay a premium on everything. For being poor, for not having options, for making mistakes born from necessity, not stupidity. The fourth way they profit is through the knowledge gap. This one makes me the most frustrated because it's so preventable. Most people don't understand basic financial concepts. They don't know how compound interest works. They can't read a mortgage contract. They don't understand what their credit card agreement actually says. And this ignorance costs them dearly. Wealthy people exploit this gap constantly. Not necessarily through malice. Sometimes just by having information others don't. They understand tax loopholes. They know about investment vehicles most people have never heard of. They have accountants and lawyers who find ways to pay less, while others pay more. Let me give you a concrete example. Credit card rewards. Wealthy people use credit cards for everything. They pay them off every month. They never pay interest. They collect thousands of dollars in cashback and rewards annually. Meanwhile, average people use the same cards. But they carry balances. They pay interest that completely overwhelms any rewards they might earn. Same product. The credit card company makes money from one group, pays money to another group. The difference? Financial knowledge, discipline, access to cash flow that allows paying balances in full. Or consider real estate. Wealthy people understand that property generally appreciates. They buy homes and investment properties. Their wealth grows as values increase. They deduct mortgage interest from their taxes. They build equity instead of paying rent. Poor people rent. They build zero equity. They can't deduct anything. They're paying someone else's mortgage, making someone else wealthy through their monthly rent checks. But here's where it gets really interesting. The knowledge gap isn't just about what you know. It's about knowing that you don't know. Wealthy people hire experts. They pay for advice. They understand that good financial counsel pays for itself many times over. Poor people try to figure everything out alone. Or they don't seek advice because they assume they can't afford it. Or they don't know what questions to ask. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Lack of knowledge leads to mistakes. Mistakes cost money. Lost money means less resources to invest in knowledge. The gap widens. The fifth way is through the timing advantage. This one ties everything together, and it reveals the deepest truth about how wealth actually accumulates. Rich people have the luxury of patience. They can wait for the right opportunity. They can hold investments through downturns. They can negotiate because they're not desperate. Time is on their side. Poor people don't have this luxury. They need money now. They need to sell now. They need to decide now. This creates what economists call time preference. Rich people have low time preference. They'll wait for bigger gains later rather than taking small gains now. Poor people have high time preference. They need gains now, even if it costs them more in the long run. Imagine two people at a farmer's market. Both want to buy produce. The wealthy person sees that prices are high right now. They can wait until the end of the day when vendors drop prices rather than take produce home. They save 30%. The poor person is shopping on their lunch break. They can only come now. They pay full price. Same market, same products, different outcomes based purely on timing flexibility. Or consider buying a house. The wealthy person can wait for the right property. They can walk away from bad deals. They can make lowball offers without desperation. They can close in cash without needing mortgage approval. Sellers know this. They give better deals to cash buyers who can close quickly. The poor person needs a place now. They're competing with other desperate buyers. They pay above asking. They accept bad terms. They take whatever mortgage they can get. This timing advantage extends to everything. Job negotiations, starting a business, investing, buying cars, everything. When you can afford to wait, you get better deals. When you're desperate, you pay premium prices. But here's what nobody wants to admit. This system is designed this way. Not through conspiracy, just through natural evolution of how money works. Money flows toward people who don't need it immediately, away from people who do, toward people who can wait, away from people who can't, toward people who understand the game, away from people still learning the rules. Now let me tell you about Jake. Jake works hard, makes about $50,000 a year. He's trying to build wealth, but he keeps hitting obstacles. Jake keeps $3,000 in his checking account. It earns 0 interest. When his car needs repairs, he puts it on his credit card. Pays 18% interest. He buys lunch at work most days. $10 here, $15 there? Doesn't seem like much, but it's $3,000 a year. When the stock market drops, Jake panics. He sells his investments. He's lost money before and doesn't want to lose more. He keeps that money in his savings account, earning 0.5% interest. Meanwhile, inflation is 3%. He's losing purchasing power, going backwards, but he feels safer. Jake rents an apartment for $1,500 a month. He thinks he can't afford to buy, doesn't have money for a down payment, doesn't understand that programs exist for first-time buyers. His landlord is building equity with Jake's rent check every month. For years, Jake has nothing to show for it. When Jake needs quick cash, he uses his debit card at any ATM. Doesn't matter if it charges $3 in fees. It's convenient. He pays his bills late sometimes. Not because he doesn't have the money, just because he forgets. Late fees add up. His credit score drops, which means higher interest rates on everything. Jake isn't stupid. He's just making small mistakes repeatedly, and each mistake costs him money. Money that flows to people who've set up systems to capture exactly these errors. Now, let me tell you about Michelle. Michelle also makes about $50,000 a year, but her outcomes are completely different. Michelle learned about the panic premium. When the market dropped, she was nervous, but she understood the pattern. She knew that scared selling locks in losses, so she held her investments. Better yet, she bought more. Not much, just $100 extra that month. She saw it as buying shares on sale. 2 years later, her portfolio had grown 30%. While Jake was earning 0.5% in savings, Michelle was earning real returns. The same market, the same time frame, different knowledge, different results. Michelle negotiated a remote work arrangement. This let her move to a lower cost area. Her rent dropped to $900 a month. Same quality apartment, different location. She saves $600 every month. $7,200 a year. She invests that difference. Michelle set up automatic bill pay, never pays late fees, Set up direct deposit to savings, pays herself first, uses a high-yield savings account earning 4% instead of 0.5%. Uses a credit card with cash back, pays it off monthly, never pays interest, earns $300 a year in rewards. She brought lunch to work 4 days a week, saved $2,500 a year, used that money to build an emergency fund. Now when her car needs repairs, she pays cash. No credit card interest, no desperation loans, no panic. The difference between Jake and Michelle isn't intelligence. It's not willpower. It's knowledge. It's understanding the patterns. It's seeing how the system works and positioning yourself accordingly. Here's what most people don't realize. The way wealth accumulates isn't about making money. It's about not losing it. Every mistake costs you. Every convenience fee. Every interest payment. Every panic decision. Every late payment. These seem small individually, but they compound. In the wrong direction, the people who build wealth aren't necessarily earning more. They're losing less. They're avoiding the traps. They're not paying the stupid tax that everyone else pays. They're on the other side of the equation. Receiving interest instead of paying it. Buying during panic instead of selling. Negotiating from strength instead of desperation. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The system needs people like Jake. It needs people who panic, who pay fees, who take high-interest loans, who make mistakes, because every financial mistake creates a profit opportunity for someone else. The economy runs on this transfer, from the uninformed to the informed, from the desperate to the patient, from the emotional to the strategic. This isn't about judging Jake. He's doing his best with what he knows. This is about recognizing that financial education is itself a form of wealth. Understanding these patterns is worth thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands over a lifetime, maybe hundreds of thousands. The panic premium, the desperation loan, the expensive convenience, the knowledge gap, the timing advantage. These aren't character flaws. They're predictable patterns that can be overcome once you understand them. The question isn't whether rich people profit from mistakes. They do. They always have. They always will. The question is whether you're going to keep making those mistakes, or whether you're going to step off the treadmill and position yourself differently. Because here's what gives me hope. Everything I just described is learnable. You can learn to recognize panic in yourself. You can build systems that prevent desperation. You can acquire knowledge that closes the gap. You can create the time buffer that gives you negotiating power. The game is rigged, but not in the way most people think. It's not rigged against you personally. It's rigged toward people who understand the rules, and those rules can be learned by anyone, including you. So the next time you feel that panic, that desperation, that pressure to make a quick decision, remember, someone is counting on you to feel that way. Someone has positioned themselves to profit from that feeling. And recognizing that, that's the first step to making sure it's not you making the mistake, and maybe, eventually, being the person who's positioned for opportunity instead.